let's bring in our special guest for today. We've got Ryan Bloomfield from out of Oregon. He's a writer with BaseballHQ, also one half, I should say, of the Bubba and the Bloom podcast. Welcome, Ryan Bloomfield. Nice to have you here on PHLY Phillies podcast.
Renee, Jamie, thanks for having me on. Love the energy that you all bring to the show. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, so any of that, but we've been doing our Down on the Farm Phillies prospects report, like kind of going through the top 25 prospects. And, we were talking about a kid today that was an international signing period last year in January for the Phillies, Wenwei Pan. I'm not expecting you to know much about him, but he's a pretty exciting prospect. The international signing period, Ryan, is coming up. Do you know much about like the big name prospects out there? I know the Phillies are tied to a Dominican league. I think a 17-year-old kid. Is there a big prize out there this year in the international signing period?
There is one big one. I don't know if your Phillies will be in on him or not. They've been rumored to go to San Diego, so I may be giving you guys some bad news here. But the name that really sticks out for the international signing period this year, if I can look them up, where'd he go?
I threw you on the spot with a tough first question. International signing
Coming
period.
in with a fastball.
Yeah, these hard hitting ones. I don't have his name. We move on to the next one. I'll bring it up.
Okay.
When I see it.
Yeah.
All right, well, while we're on the topic of signings and free agency, let's talk about Showtime and Naga because that news broke. The Cubs finally decided to join the offseason conversation as the only team that hadn't done anything in free agency or any trades. The Cubs and Showtime and Naga have agreed to a deal. I actually just lost the details of it myself. It's in all these tabs that I have. But with that, welcome to the offseason, Chicago. Also, it should be expecting this to be the first of maybe a domino effect of some other moves for the Cubs. What are your thoughts when you finally heard the news that the Cubs have, made a move in a signing, but also that Showtime and Naga, ahead of his Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern time deadline, has finally found a team to call home?
All right, first off, before that answer, Renee, I do need to follow up on the name that I was looking for the international signing period. It's Leo Dallas DeVries. He is one of the rumored to be to San Diego and rumored to be about like a $5 million sign. That the hype for him is off the charts. So it goes by Leo, but Leo DeVries was the name I was looking for. So sorry about that.
All right.
Shota Imanaga. Yeah, no, that was a tough first question, but I like it. I like it.
It wasn't my
intention. Welcome to the show.
Hey, you guys had
my you'll get, Ryan, I promise.
You guys had my co-host Bubba on the Bubba and the Bloom podcast on about a month or so ago, and I think you took it easy on him. So that's I'll
basically. Well, let me add some more there, Ryan. Actually, so the details that have come out so far about the deal with Imanaga and the Cubs, as Jim Bowden was saying, is that they agreed to a very quote complicated deal that features an average annual value of $15 million, and allegedly there were other teams. Especially one other team, I should say. We don't know who that team is as of now, at least I don't, that offered double what was offered to Imanaga, but Imanaga made the decision to become a Chicago Cub.
Is any deal not complex these days? I feel like with the Ohtani deferral thing, like we need to be advanced accountants to be able to figure out some of this stuff with deferrals and CBT and tax and that sort of thing. But no, that makes sense. I mean, Imanaga to me is interesting. We wrote him up at BaseballHQ. We put out the baseball forecaster every year to play player profiles on pretty much everybody. And what we landed on with Imanaga was like, I feel like he could be a solid mid-rotation starter pretty much right away. He's proven his chops overseas. He's got a 2.51 ERA over the past 3 seasons in Japan. And what we saw last year from Imanaga was a pretty big bump in strikeout rate, which is what you really like to see, especially coming over to see some of that swing and miss come over. The big concern with Imanaga, he is extremely home run prone, and especially going to Chicago, as you all know, in the summertime with that wind blowing out, like that could be very much an issue. Imanaga gave up the second most number of home runs in his Japanese league last year. So despite the I guess the consistency, the good ratios that Imanaga has posted, and the bump in strikeout rate, which really does look good. I think the only thing holding him back right now is that gopheritis, that home run issue that kind of knocks him more down into that maybe number 3 type starter for me.
Yeah, Ryan, Mike Schmidt here historically once hit 4 home runs in a game at Wrigley Field. So we're very familiar with Wrigley's home run capabilities there. So a question I've been asking all of our guests so far is, I think what the Los Angeles Dodgers are doing is actually really good for baseball, because it puts a heel in the sport in one of the biggest markets in the country. I think more eyeballs are going to get to the Dodgers. I think more people are going to root for their demise and downfall because of the way they're spending. They've taken like the Yankees Death Star of the early aughts and like juiced it up with some HGH. Do you think this super team is good for baseball?
Yeah, I kind of grew up in the 90s and kind of hated the Yankees for every time they signed an A-Rod, a Teixeira, all those guys. And so I do think it is good to have a heel. And the other interesting thing that, or like a team to collectively root against, I think that's good for the game. I wish other teams would get on board with what the Dodgers are doing. That's a separate conversation, but I do feel like that team that everyone loves to hate it can be a rallying factor. And the other thing I'll add is, like, with baseball, I think the beauty of the game is the postseason is almost a coin flip. Like, you could be the best team. I mean, we saw the the Dodgers the last few years. Braves were probably, I know you guys don't like to hear that since you knocked them out, but the Braves
Nasty,
were probably,
but we don't fear them in the postseason. Yeah.
You guys knocked out the Braves, who were probably the best team in baseball last year. It's I think that's the beauty of the sport, is the variance. And once you get to the playoffs, you go on a run, as you all know. It is far from a shoo-in that the Dodgers are World Series champs, that everyone is proclaiming them to be, despite all of the impressive moves that they've made thus far.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that we've talked about. Of course, there's other factors. The playoffs in general are a whole different beast. Injuries come into play. It's such a long season. Obviously, we're not wishing that on anybody, but we know it's part of the game, and that's also something that drastically can change things up. But I know you mentioned the Yankees as someone that, much like most of us, disliked the Yankees growing up in the 90s, and the Yankees have been tied to a few different names, Josh Hader being one of them. Now, recent reports have indicated Josh Hader's kind of been on a delay where teams are prioritizing starting pitching in Jordan Montgomery, Blake Snell. Of course, Shota Imanaga was one of those names as well, but he's now off the board. And because of that, Josh Hader's kind of been waiting to see where those starters are going to sign before finding a deal of his own. The Yankees and Rangers have been two teams connected to Josh Hader, but I know various reports have said we're probably not going to see Josh Hader come off the board until Snell or Montgomery is gone. What are your thoughts on Hader as a reliever, the best relief pitcher on the market, but still waiting, and where you think he's going to possibly end up?
I mean, if I had to guess, it's going to be the Dodgers, right? They just sign everybody, but Hader can take his time. I mean, with relievers, like, it's not that much of a ramp up time for new teams and getting used. I mean, relievers, you just you're in for an inning, you go all gas, and that's your thing. Hader himself, like, it's interesting, 5.22 ERA. If we had this conversation this time last year, Josh Hader's coming off a 5.22 ERA, 128 WHIP, where he just basically collapsed with San Diego after that trade from Milwaukee. Fast forward to now, 128 ERA with San Diego last year. I think Hader's true talent level is somewhere in between, maybe like a mid-3s ERA guy, which is good, which is serviceable, and he's had the track record of being able to hold down the role for some time. I don't think he is a top-tier closer anymore. I think whoever pays for Josh Hader, every free agent is technically an overpay in my opinion, but I think whoever's going to pay for Josh Hader a few years on that contract where he's 30 now, I think you're getting a good closer, but I don't think this is a game changer or anyone who is going to be elite this year.
So Ryan, one of the things we talked about today was DraftKings released the NL MVP odds yesterday, and Wow. I think all the best players in baseball, like almost all, are in the NL now. If I was giving you $100 of funny money to place on a guy to take home the NL MVP this year, I mean, you're talking about multiple MVP winners. You have Acuna, Betts, Otani, Harper's in there, Freeman's in there. I mean, Matt Olson, Corbin Carroll, Manny Machado, Trey Turner, and Fernando Tatis. Where is Ryan's $100 season-long NL MVP bet going?
I mean,
Ooh.
it's almost impossible to not go with Ronald Acuna based on what we saw last year, but history has shown that even the best players, like that follow-up season is incredibly hard to reproduce. So Acuna seems like the obvious, but he also has the best odds. So if I'm going down this list a little bit, I'm going to go Fernando Tatis. I think Fernando Tatis is now one more year removed from that suspension, that shoulder injury that we saw. I know San Diego, with them trading Soto to New York, I don't know if they're going to be in the hunt, but I feel like in today you just need to make the playoffs, and that kind of qualifies you right or wrong to be going with the NL MVP. And I think Fernando Tatis is still one of the most talented players in the game. And if San Diego makes a run, it is because of Fernando Tatis, and he is what, 6th down the board on NL MVP.
Fourth.
So
He's behind Otani, and then Harper and Freeman are sandwiching them there. So, yeah, that's a good one, plus
like
1,000.
I like that. Well, we've talked a lot about the big name players, big name teams. Our producer Tyler has a great question for you, actually. Tyler, I'm going to actually just let you ask it versus me taking your question.
Yeah, so last year we kind of got a little bit of a shock with Arizona making the run that they did, and maybe you call them a little bit of a sleeper, with hindsight in mind. I have one team in particular that I think is like the sleeper of 2024. I'm curious, do you have any teams heading into this season that you think could be that team that we look back and go, wow, that was a really good team and they made a run and we weren't expecting that in January of 24?
I'll go 2. I think your more obvious sleeper is Minnesota. I really like the Twins. I know they made the playoffs last year and started to make a run. I think with that rotation, what that organization does philosophically with their starting pitchers is fantastic. So I think Minnesota, if they can just stay healthy on the hitting side, is one that sticks out. And if I'm digging really deep, Detroit Tigers. Like, don't sleep on the Tigers next year. They have a rotation. Tariq Skubal looks like an ace. The lineup wasn't that bad, and really nobody expects anything from the Detroit Tigers. I don't really think the division's that tough either. So they can at least make some noise, I think, in the Central and somewhere where nobody expects them to do so.
Yeah.
Ryan, last one for you. Way too early World Series prediction. Who you got squaring off next year? Do the Dodgers pull it off and get there?
Hey, this is easier than the international signing question that we led off with. I'm gonna go Baltimore in the AL. Love what they did last year. Young team. I think they only build from there. And then, unfortunately, I will say the Dodgers will face.
Okay.
They are good.
Sorry
I like
to be a
it.
little obvious. I can't go too far off script. We'll go off script with Baltimore, and we'll keep it tight with LA.